I can't determine what's newsworthy to everybody, but certainly these issues are newsworthy to some.
Well, again, if it's a major company like Wells Fargo, I can understand how that would be newsworthy. If it's over a little tiny solo practitioner lawyer and a little tiny appraiser company in Glen Gardner, New Jersey, that's something entirely different.
But again, you're ignoring the link between the two of that is not that tenuous. The guy was, an agent of Wells Fargo. He's a contractor of Wells Fargo. Well, basically, I have information that you had called someone a nigger, and I'm investigating that, and the allegation was that you did this at a time when you were involved in a case that was captioned in Pennsylvania, and I didn't know if there was, if you were pro hoc vice or what the situation was like there.
One of my clients called me the other day and said that they saw this on Google. And I'm absolutely stunned. No, I've never used that word in my life, to be honest with you.
Stand up and be counted, show the world that you're a man. Stand up and be counted, go with the Ku Klux Klan. We are a sacred brotherhood who love our country true. We always can be counted on when there's a job to do. We serve our homeland day and night to keep it always free, and proudly wear our robes of white protecting liberty.
What's she trying to do? She's trying to say, okay, I'm a nigger and I got too much, I borrowed too much money and I couldn't afford it. That's it. And if you can say that in real life, that's what we would say. Right. I'm a nigger. I'm a nigger.
Aw, so you want to be able to say it in real life, don't you? Well, careful what you ask for, son, because I'm going to give you your wish. And that's mighty white of me, isn't it? Hot on the heels of a record $5 million federal sex discrimination settlement. Okay, so let's focus for a second here. The main issue here is, when is it ethical, or at least not unethical, for an attorney to call someone a nigger in reference to saying that she can't afford her house payments? Well, in this instance, Attorney Apgar claims that he's not licensed counsel for John Watkins. If that's the case, then he's not cloaked with attorney privilege, immunity to say whatever he wants to say. And his statements then about Miss Golphin being a nigger who can't afford her mortgage are arguably defamatory. Got me? You can't have it both ways. And I know a little bit about defamation, as you'll soon see.
Hello, this is Howard Apgar. Can I help you?
Hi, Mr. Apgar. I was trying to get an attorney in Pennsylvania. Are you licensed in Pennsylvania?
I am not. All right, bye, Lex. I'll see you Friday. I'm not. I am in New Jersey, yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, I have information that you had called someone a nigger, and I'm investigating that, and the allegation was that you did this at a time when you were involved in a case that was captioned in Pennsylvania, and I didn't know if there was, if you were pro hoc vice or what the situation was like there.
One of my clients called me the other day and said that they saw this on Google, and I'm absolutely stunned. No, I've never used that word in my life, to be honest with you. And where are you from, Mr. King?
Well, I live in Seattle now, but I used to live on the East Coast, and I was an escrow attorney years ago, and before that I was a civil rights litigator. But basically, I help homeowners with negotiating seconds and HELOCs, and I also do courtroom video and deposition video. So this situation came to me, and I heard the tape, and there were two people on the tape, and it sounded like you had left your name and information, and there was an appraiser with you, who I believe is since deceased, and to my ears, it definitely sounded like nigger, and I just was like, well, let me try to find Attorney Apgar. I mean, I put it out there. That's my video, but I couldn't find you, and, I just needed to get your comment, and then on her issues that she's raising to me, and, I hate to do a story and not ask the person, involved. I'm sorry.
Who's raising to you?
Her name is Shirley Golphin. Shirley Mary Golphin is her name.
Mrs. Golphin, from what I recall, okay, and I'm highly offended by this. First off, Mrs. Golphin sued my client. She brought a predatory lending claim against Wells Fargo, maybe, and my client, was an appraiser named John Watkins.
Right.
And from what my understanding was, and again, this is going back close to 10 years because Mr. Watkins has been dead for nearly 5.
Right.
And I wonder, how did this get on Google?
I put it there. I got a copy of the audio, and I listened to it with several other people. We went over, we kind of did a transcript of what the call was to the best of our ears, and that's what we came up with.
Okay. Well, first off, it was Mr. Watkins who made that comment, not me. And Mr. Watkins is dead, and if that is not removed from Google immediately, I will bring a defamation action against you and anyone else who's involved in this.
Well, now, you definitely don't want to mess with me on defamation issues, okay? Look at this case right here. Just yesterday, a case that I helped initiate 5 years ago for Joanna Marinova after I met her on my radio show, settled for almost $1 million yesterday after the jury verdict came in a while back for $500,000. Then we got prejudgment interest, I guess. We'll figure it all out. But yeah, you don't want to go there. This is how I operate when I'm facing people who defame people.
You'll hear about what this completely unnecessary attack did to Miss Marinova.
She hid from all those people the most important fact about the visit, that she was the murderer's girlfriend, in fact, fiance.
Counselor Biagietti, what does the word bag mean to you in a professional context? I've worked for major press, and I know when I use the word bag, that usually connotes something pretty serious, right? Right? Sorry, Counselor, was there something funny? Counselor? I'm sorry, was there something humorous about my question? About the connotation and denotation of the word bagged? Well, I'm not worried about any defamation action. I'm a First Amendment scholar, and to me, when I listened to that audio, it sounded like both of the people on the call used that word. So I'm not worried about defamation action. I can defend that. But I'm just concerned about, the allegations were that you were not licensed.
If you're a First Amendment scholar, that means that there's freedom of speech, don't you think?
Well, that's right. And you said, that would depend, though, because if the freedom of speech is tied to something that could be predatory lending, and Wells Fargo has a history of predatory lending, then you have a horse of a different color, no pun intended. However, that having been said, of course, if it's freedom of speech, then there's no defamation action if you said it, or if the two people said it, and I broadcast it, then there's no cause of action.
Well, my comment is that, first off, Mr. Watkins is deceased. And what is your interest in this anyway?
I'm an investigative journalist.
Okay, well, to my knowledge, and you're an investigative journalist, and I don't ever recall using that word in my entire life.
Well, I tell you,
I may be a hick from Hunterdon County, all right, in the sticks of New Jersey, but I'm a terribly enlightened hick.
Well, that's all right. Some of my best friends are hicks. I got no issue with that.
Okay, and again, I'm not sure what the point is here. I mean, what's the point of all this?
Well, the point is, I find it offensive if that was what was stated, whether or not it's a free speech issue or whether or not it was uttered in conjunction with, a separate unlawful or illegal act of, I don't know if it was redlining or predatory lending, I don't know. But Wells Fargo, it's indisputable, I guess, that Wells Fargo does have a history of predatory lending and discrimination. They've settled lawsuits for that, and they just had a sexual discrim lawsuit settled the other day for like $5 million. So they have issues. And I've worked on issues out here for a mediation where Wells Fargo was found in bad faith a couple of times in cases that I actually worked on. So they got issues. That's not your fault. You're the lawyer. But I'm just saying, if there is racism incumbent in all that, it's definitely a story.
No, this was a comment that was made by John Watkins, who is have some respect for the dead.
Well, I'm gonna have respect for the dead as long as they have respect for the living.
For the what?
I said I'm gonna have respect for the dead as long as they have respect for the living. And if he called her a nigger, he's not showing her any respect for the living. So, how much respect am I gonna show him? In hindsight. I mean, I am black, but some of my family's white, some of it's Chinese. I mean, I'm kind of like all over the board here. But no, that's not cool.
Mr. King, I assure you, I have never in my 53 years of life been accused of being a racist.
I just like
the fact that I come from Highbridge and my family is a bunch of farmers. Okay, one of my best friends in college was African American. One of my best friends in law school was an African American. Willie Mays is my idol. My favorite Jedi is Mace Windu. I can't believe that I'm being, and I remember John Watkins. I remember exactly what he said.
Well, there's
again,
banter.
John Watkins is dead, so why?
Well, but there's banter. If you listen to the tape, there's banter back and forth between you and John Watkins, and it certainly sounds as if both of you uttered that word.
They say, okay, I'm a nigger, and I got too much, I borrowed too much money, and I couldn't afford it. That's it. And if you could say that in real life, that's what we would say.
I haven't gone to a speech pathologist to have this analyzed, but I have a pretty good ear, and I can listen to tonal pitch and quality between the two speakers, and it sounded like both of you said it. To my ear.
Well, again, this is a long time ago. Mr. Watkins has been dead for a long time, and from what I recall, he said something along the lines of, "Oh, Wells Fargo left me too much. I'm a whatever." This is what I recall. John was using a mock tone of voice and said, "I'm a black person, and I borrowed too much money, and now I can't pay it back."
Right, which is debatable as to the merits, but then both of you engage in discussion, and I couldn't tell who said that at first. I believe it was.
On top of it, we didn't know we were being recorded, either of us.
Well, that's neither here nor there. But the point is whether the point is that it was stated, and if that's a prevailing attitude from Wells Fargo, we have several issues there because
John Watkins has nothing to do with Wells Fargo, other than the fact that he was a contract appraiser.
So he's a contract appraiser, so that's fine. But as a contractor, then you would acknowledge that Wells Fargo has exercise of dominion over him and what he's doing. So
But not over what he's saying.
Well, and over his attitude.
And what he believed to be a private conversation between two friends.
But once it's raised and once it's opened up, okay, then that's something that Wells Fargo should denounce.
This lawsuit has been over for years.
I understand that, but there's, as I understand, there's also a pending foreclosure action, and I've looked at some of the documents in that, and I've seen they've had 3 attempted summary judgments that have been rejected by the court for want of information, and Miss Golphin has shown me a handwriting analysis from a professional who says that there are forged documents in that case. So, the beat goes on.
Well, I don't know anything about it. All my role was John Watkins' lawyer as the appraiser. There were allegations that the property was overappraised, and it was subsequently turned over to Mr. Watkins E&O carrier, and that was the end of it.
Right, and I saw this said there was a settlement. I saw it registered in federal court. I saw that piece. So whatever that is whatever that is. I had several people listen to it before I published, because I am concerned about that. Even though it's a free speech issue, I am concerned about it representing who said what. And to me, everybody who's listened to it said that both of you said it.
Okay, well, as I say, I maintain that, number one, this was a private conversation between two people who did not know they were being recorded. Number two, I don't recall ever using that word. Number three, even if I did, I'm the farthest thing from a racist in the world.
Well, in the way that it was said, well, number one...
2014, for God's sakes.
Well, I know.
This is not 1954.
Well,
and,
that's my point.
The problem with America today is that everyone is so politically correct that you can't walk down the street without offending anyone or someone. And it's all because of people like you.
Wait a minute, brother. No one. Most of my friends are white to start with. I was raised in all-white prep school, okay? So let's not go there, okay? I honestly will not raise an issue. I am not...
Otherwise, why would you be bringing something up that was said by a dead man 10 years ago?
Again, I'm not the one on trial here. I'm not the one at issue here. The point is, this guy said it, and ostensibly, I believe you said it as well. And it's done in a situation involving Wells Fargo, okay, in which Wells Fargo has a history of racial discrimination. So how am I being sensationalist?
Well,
there's a history here.
Anything to do with Wells Fargo, I have nothing to do with Wells Fargo.
Well, you were representing his appraiser who was a contractor for Wells Fargo, okay? That's one degree of separation. Come on. So, I'm not being sensationalist at all. There is such a thing as jokingly, some of my white friends could say, hey, nigga, what's up? And that's fine with me if they know what's up and it's not said in that tone. Your conversation with Mr. Watkins was not said in that tone. It was not.
It most certainly was.
Oh, no, it wasn't. You have a serious situation here.
Were you there? I was there.
The point. This is involving federal litigation, sir, and allegations of racism, okay? And there's nothing funny about any of that.
Wells Fargo?
I beg your pardon?
Against Wells Fargo?
This issue, as a journalist, I have reviewed Wells Fargo's history, okay? And it is replete with racism and sexism, okay?
Oh.
Judgments. So that's a material fact. Now, when you have a contractor for Wells Fargo throwing the nigger bomb, somehow I find that might be relevant. And it's not sensationalist.
Okay, well, John Watkins was one of my best friends for many years.
I could tell that by your conversation with him.
If I'm joking about it, if I'm joking with one of my friends, that's one thing. If it's private conversation that we did not know was being recorded, it doesn't mean that we were racist, neither Mr. Watkins and I. It was a joke. And
well,
it was said
let me ask you this.
Sarcasm.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, given the history of discrimination in this country to start with, which is pretty heinous, but look, if I'm sitting around and, let's say I'm sitting around with one of my black friends, and we're evaluating some action taken or not taken by someone white. If I turn, and let's just imagine this is a professional capacity, so let's just imagine that I'm sitting here talking with, say I'm working on a case with somebody who's another black attorney, or a Chinese attorney, a minority attorney. And we turn and we say, hey, that cracker this or that cracker that, I would think that that's kind of unprofessional. Well, we didn't talk like that.
Everything depends on context.
Yeah, it does, and this was a serious situation. This was a serious issue that was going on. And so, yeah, it does depend on context, yeah. Yeah, we're just reading. I guess we're just reading the context differently.
In my mind, this was a private conversation that was not being. We had no idea it was being recorded, and again, it was all said in the utmost jest. and there was no racist overtones or racial overtones whatsoever.
Well, that's not the way I heard it. So I guess we can agree to
Well,
disagree on that.
I was there, and I'm telling you what my comment. You asked me for a comment. That's my comment.
Okay. Well, we've got that clear. And also, but how were you? Let me ask you this though: how is it that you were on the case? The case was captioned a Pennsylvania federal case. Are you on the? Are you part of that bar, or were you?
No, I was just advising John until his E&O attorney took over.
I
John
see.
was not
I
just
see.
my client. John was my best friend.
Okay, I got you there. So you didn't appear. You didn't defend the deposition. Somebody else did that.
No, I didn't. I didn't do anything.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we're clear on that. Well, not so fast, and it's not so clear. Look at the case caption, okay? He's clearly present at the deposition on record, asking substantive questions. Now, I guarantee you, if my nigger ass showed up somewhere in such a fashion, the Columbus Bar Association would be all over me for unauthorized practice of law. That, my friends, is the state of race relations in this country. Meanwhile, Shirley Golphin's complaint was ignored. And the allegation was, which we'll never know because it never went to a jury trial, never went to a bench trial, it was settled. The allegation was that this was part of a pattern and practice of Wells Fargo and its agents. And so, and you know, again, I've studied Wells Fargo and they've got some serious issues. So, you know, that's not my fault.
I never represented, Wells Fargo, and I was merely there as John's friend and not his counsel.
Well, I hear you on that, and your discussion goes on. I mean, you were, as you know, you may not have been his licensed counsel, but you have a substantive discussion with him about what your responses are going to be if he's asked questions, and you were basically telling him, look, I'm just going to say that violates the fiduciary relationship between you and Wells Fargo. And so you were, you know, definitely giving him legal advice, and even though you weren't of counsel, actually, your name is listed for the witness on the case caption in the 43rd Judicial District in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I was not there as John's counsel. I was there merely as sitting next to John. I attended the deposition with him. I never entered an appearance.
Well, hold on a minute. At page 39, the record indicates that at page 39, but yeah, it does. It has you listed as under appearances, and so that obviously that does lead one to believe that you were of record.
Number one, I'm not licensed to practice law in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Mr. Watkins asked me to go with him before he was assigned an E&O attorney.
Right.
And I went with him. I was not there as formally as his attorney, but merely as his buddy.
Right. And so, to your knowledge, then, would Martha von Rosenstyle or Steele, do you recall, was that his lawyer on the E&O?
I have no clue.
Okay.
As soon as an attorney gets, a defense counsel gets involved with anything, if it's one of my clients, I'm trying to think. I just had to. I have a gentleman client, a Cuban American. Actually, he's a Cuban immigrant who came here, fleeing the Castro regime because his father's sugar plantation was seized by the communists, who has been my client for nearly 15 years, was here this morning, and I had to send he was being sued for an auto accident, and I referred it to his insurance company. It's the same thing with John Watson.
Well, wait a minute though, because I found
I wouldn't have been able to represent John anyway because it was in Pennsylvania court.
Well, here's the question though. Okay, at page 39 of the deposition, the question was raised to you, Mr. Apgar. Do you have any questions? And you say, I have just a couple. And then you redirect Mr. Watkins. Okay, and you ask him to describe.
Just to clarify some things that Johnny might have said.
Well, fair enough, but I mean that's if you go into his opinion on what do you base your opinion about the home, that's pretty substantive at that point. And if you're there as his friend, you're not allowed to be on the record like that. You could talk to him in the hallway, but you can't ask him a redirect or a direct or indirect or recross. You can't do that.
Well, no, I understand I can't do that.
But that's what it looks like you did at page 39 of the transcript. I can send it to you.
I believe you. It wasn't my deposition, though. It was the plaintiff's deposition.
Right, but it looks like you were defending it, in a sense.
I was not defending anything. I was just, I might have asked John to clarify something.
Okay. I hear your position on that. I'm looking at it and, I don't know. I mean, you weren't lead on it, but you definitely were involved in the deposition, so I don't know on that. I can't determine what's newsworthy to everybody, but certainly these issues are newsworthy to some.
Well, again, if it's a major company like Wells Fargo, I can understand how that would be newsworthy. If it's over a little tiny solo practitioner lawyer and a little tiny appraiser company in Glen Gardner, New Jersey, that's something entirely different.
But again, you're ignoring the link between the two of that is not that tenuous. The guy was, an agent of Wells Fargo. He's a contractor of Wells Fargo. And I'm sorry for your loss, by the way.
I had nothing to do with Wells Fargo. I was just John Watkins' buddy, that's all.
All right. Very well, counsel. Listen, I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. If you have any other concerns or questions, definitely give me a call. And I'll make sure to get your side of the. I'll make sure to get your side of the story aired by tomorrow.